Can you guys see the rain? I'm in Texas and it's raining. Look at that. That thing runs. That's a Willis Jeep made during the very end of World War II. It never got shipped. I'm in Texas. Mostly just hanging out, drinking local beer. And I have been thinking about adding a new segment to my YouTube channel, which is me answering questions because I see other YouTubers do it, and I really like Adam Savage, and he does a lot of questions that he answers, and a lot of them I noticed aren't live questions. So I thought, I'm sure maybe he gets asked some live as well, but I don't have enough of you guys, I think, asking questions to do a live stream. Though maybe I'll do it in the future. We'll see what happens. But I get asked a lot of questions, and a lot of them I think are similar questions that a lot of people ask. And I don't think I need any visual aids for these, so I should be able to answer these all in here in Texas, or at least be able to give you a description. But when I'm talking about the suit and everything in it, I make a lot of assumptions because it's something I'm very close to and I've been working on for a while. So without too much more introduction here, let's talk about some questions. Nightly Nerd asks, really love the work you do and look forward to more. May I ask what moves your design of Exoskeleton? He talks about a video he has. I believe I watched this video at some point about pulleys attached to cables, blah, blah. Okay, Nightly Nerd. The suit is powered by artificial muscles. They are a McKibben-style artificial muscle, which is an old design. It's been around. You can hear the rain in the background. They've been around since, I want to say the 60s, or is it the 40s? I know it's an even number. Definitely wasn't the 50s. It may have been. I don't know. But essentially the way they work is they work like a finger trap, a Chinese finger trap, if you're not being politically correct. I think you can probably still say that. But a finger trap, but instead of being made out of paper, they're made out of Kevlar. And if you can imagine, as you squish a finger trap, it gets fatter and it gets shorter. And the volume actually increases slightly. The internal volume of the system increases slightly as you do that. So if you put a bladder inside of there and you push some type of fluid through it, either like a liquid fluid or a gas, and it presses, and it has higher pressure than the outside, it will press against that wall and force a contraction. And they're actually, so I invented a type of those muscles. And what my invention in particular was the ends, the seals at the ends of the muscles. And what they allowed to do is the highest pressure to be reached at those type of muscles ever done. The highest pressure that I know of that anyone had done before that was about 500 psi. I'm able to get mine up to 3,000 psi. And because of that, these things contract with like a huge amount of force. They produce 5 tons of force, which is like almost 10,000 pounds. 8 of them could lift a semi-truck off the ground. Now, they don't contract very far. The ones I made only contract by about 25%, though that could be changed, and it may be something I try to change. Now where the failure point is on these things is at the bladder. The rubber bladder, the last one I did, kind of where I left the design, I haven't worked with it since I started working on the suit, because I can't work on like tons of things at once. I'll come back to it eventually to power the suit, but where it is right now is the bladder can only contract probably about 100 times or so before it failed. So I need to find a more suitable bladder material. I've only tried one elastomer. So there's a whole bunch of different types of materials I can use. Right now I'm using N-Buna, which is it's a tube made out of N-Buna, which is the same material that O-rings are made out of. It's got more of the elastomer in it, so it's a little bit more rubbery than like a hard O-ring. But that developed a crack and broke. So the goal is to put those on there, and then it'll be driven by a electric motor, probably a brushless DC motor. And I've made and I'll try to remember to put links on this video. But if you search Exomuscle and you search Exomuscle unit, power unit or something like that, and my name, you'll find two of the first videos I did on this channel that talks about those two things. And I suggest you go check them out if you're interested in learning more, because I show how they work and there's some video and all that stuff. Hope that answers your question. This one I just thought was funny. This is not a question, but this is on my opening the Prime Weld TIG 225X video. It says, watching someone, or KY says, maybe KY Jelly, but just KY, says, watching someone fail who looks like Jesus makes me sad. I thought that was funny. Okay, do you go to school? This is from Trail and Terror, who's commented on a lot of my videos. Hi, Trail and Terror. Do you go to school? They have an education license for Fusion 360. I went to school. I dropped out of school. I went to CSU, Colorado State University. Left in my senior year for something that's a very long story that it will be a story for another time. Perhaps maybe another live stream or something else. But long story short, I dropped out of school and I was thinking about going back, but I was doing some traveling and I immediately knew after going traveling that I had taught myself, felt like I had learned more in like 2 weeks of traveling just about the way the world works, reading books and traveling than I did like my entire post-secondary education, which sounds like a lot, but I mean, I learned more technical things in school, but I just felt like I was learning at such a fast rate not being in school. I'm like, why would I go back to school? It's just a lot of money and I don't want to do that. Nightly Nerd asks again. Really fantastic design. Would the muscles in black be exposed in the final design? So the muscles, and I don't know which ones in particular he was referring to. I did some drawings where they were black. I'm planning on covering them in some kind of sleeve or something that will make them black. The most recent update of the actual functioning hydraulic muscles that I was just explaining had a gray cover on them, just a sewn gray cover. But what he's asking there is about the exomuscles, and I would assume, let me see what video that was on. What video was that a comment on? Oh shoot, I don't have it. I want to say that was the video where I was talking about the 3D printed exoskeleton, and I think I may have been showing one of the drawings on that. And in the drawings, the muscles were black. Anyway, to answer your question, yes, parts of them will be showing on the Mark 1, which is the one I'm building right now. There will be some of the exomuscles exposed because the entire suit is not covered. The suit is... it's structural. It has all the structural parts it needs to, in theory, handle the load of the muscles if it was made out of titanium. It actually will, the muscles are so strong, it'll actually shear apart the aluminum if I run them at 3,000 PSI. Now, I'm probably not going to run them at 3,000 PSI because then my safety factor is 0. So I'll actually probably run them at half of that pressure, and the aluminum suit, the 6061, excuse me, the 6061 aluminum probably will have enough strength. I need to run some more simulations and stuff. I had to pay for Fusion 360 again to do that, but there should be enough, should be strong enough to handle the load of the muscle at half power, which is actually probably what I will run them at, not at their full power, because then I wouldn't have a safety factor, if that makes sense. But that's not what you asked. You asked, are they going to be exposed? Parts of them will be exposed. A lot of them are going to be covered, but parts of the muscle and a lot of the tendons that run around muscles and then anchor into a place, because the way the Kevlar sleeve works is there's a series of rings and it gets braided back and forth through the rings in order to seal it. Well, then one of the large rings gets pressed on, and the rest of them get wrapped back and forth and anchor it so that it can't rip out. But then you can keep it going and turn it into a tendon, and that's what I'm going to do. So anyway, those will wrap around, and they are made out of Kevlar, which means they're pretty strong. But Kevlar can cut. It can abrade really easy. So it'll probably have something that has more abrasion resistance on top of it, potentially. I mean, this is the Mark 1. The Mark 1's going to be kind of hacked together. But on the Mark 2, I'm trying to have I'm actually going to try to add a little bit of the armor to it, right? Because this one's supposed to fly, and it needs good surfaces to fly anyway. So this one should be, the Mark 2 should be, and when I say fly, I mean fly horizontal. I don't mean hover. This one's going to hover. The Mark 1 will hover. The Mark 2 will just fly whoosh, like a plane. It'll just fly like a plane. But it'll need good aerodynamic surfaces. So and then also eventually want to make this thing bulletproof. The Mark 3 should be bulletproof, and it's hopefully also the one to break the speed of sound. Titanium will help with both those things. High strength, high thermal abilities, and also bulletproof. So Mark 2 will also be made out of aluminum. Mark 3, we're looking at titanium. It's breaking the speed of sound and being bulletproof. So I need to practice building the armor on the Mark II and getting like the compression armor to fit in between all the joints, and that'll happen on the Mark II. And then that one hopefully shouldn't have any exomuscles exposed, but the Mark I will have some. Okay, we have 2 more questions here. NERS XX of steel, or of XX steel. Yeah. The knee is a bit too wide, especially when build the left leg. I think he's talking about the left leg. You're going to have to walk with legs wide up, otherwise they will scrape against each other. Am I wrong? Love the enthusiasm. Keep it up. Grammar is a little bit funky on that one, but I think what he's saying is that there's going to be some rings that go around my calf muscles, right? And a lot of people have pointed this out, not just Man of Steel. I think that's what it was. Not just Man of Steel. A lot of people have pointed out that the rings are very large on the calf. And the reason for that is the center of rotation of the calf turning in and out is like, at least based on the literature I could find, and then trying to match that literature to the 3D scan of me, or it's like off on the side of the leg. It's not running right through the middle of the leg, which means in order for that ring to match up with that center of rotation, it has to be off center, which means if I made it small, like if I made it the diameter of my calf, it would cut through the middle of my calf because the 2 axes of rotation are not aligned, right? Well, I guess they are aligned, excuse me. The 2 axes of rotation are aligned, but they're not in the center of my calf. Does this make sense? So it's an offset circle from the mass of my calf. So it has to be big, and it's actually as small as it can be while still fitting there. Now I'm going to probably switch off of a ring design on the Mark II and do something a little different. But this is the design I went with on the Mark I. And yeah, you guys got to remember the Mark I is a big, bulky suit. And so I'm okay with this suit being kind of big and bulky. I'm trying to get a proof of concept. I'm not trying to run a marathon in this, even though I thought about doing that, and I may do that in a suit at some point. I think it'd be really cool. At least run a 5K or something like that. Maybe I might walk a 5K in this suit. But the bulkiness doesn't worry me because all I really want to do is be able to step. But yes, I may have to step a little bit like a cowboy because they may scrape together a little bit. I'll be able to stand like with my feet about shoulders width apart, maybe like a tad, just a skosh out of that. And then that'll be about as close as my feet can get together, I think. I think last time I checked, that's what it was. Okay, and then the last one we have here is #human_spirit. It's a cool smiley face. What about drive systems, electronics, and power source? I'm planning to build a similar robotic suit. I wish you the best. There's a lot of other people on the channel that are also building suits. Or that follow this channel that are building suits. And I'm glad there's other people building suits. So we talked about the muscle. And I briefly mentioned this, but the power unit for the suit is a gear pump. So there's just 2 gears that spin, and then there's a close tolerance machined out loop, or I don't know what like a slot. And in that slot, the 2 gears mesh, and then when they turn, the fluid comes up this way, gets pulled into the gear's teeth, pushed this way, and then because the 2 teeth are meshing in the middle, it can't go back down, so it can only go, well, it increases the pressure that way, and then it goes wherever it goes that way, right? So it's taking the fluid and forcing it around and pushing it up. This is the prototype I made. I just bought that system. It was off like a transmission, I believe. I'm using that. I may use that type of pump. I may use a different one. I've even considered like turbo pumps, and there's all kinds of pumps I could use. Turbo pumps might be a bit much. Gear pumps are very easy to manufacture. There's a lot of types of pumps I could use. So many hydraulic pumps out there. But gear pumps work pretty good, and they're simple. And I don't need huge displacements or anything like that, so they work pretty good. And I could actually potentially machine them myself. So I may stick with those. I digress a little. And then it was driven by a brushless DC motor. I used something called an O-drive. I would not do that this way again. Nothing to do with O-drive not being a good product. It was just overkill for what I was doing. So I'll probably either design my own or speed controller type of thing, or just use an off-the-shelf speed controller. But essentially just eventually I'd like to build my own board that could run the DC motor. Probably will just use, China makes such cheap, good, high quality motors. for like skateboards and shit. I probably will just use theirs. I probably will not mess with trying to build my own motors for a long time. And then that's the pump system. And then the last thing to talk about in the most basic of hydraulic systems, which is what mine is. It doesn't need any valves because there's one unit per muscle. So I don't need anything like I'm not having like a single hydraulic system that's opens valves to each muscle. It is a single motor. There's a pump and a motor for each actuator on the suit. So the goal is to make those as tight as small as possible, and then I eliminate all the plumbing throughout the suit, except for maybe a central reservoir. And what the way it worked on the last one is there's a hydraulic bladder, one of those in-buna bladders, and I put a seal at one end, and I put it inside of a large tube, and then I sealed up that tube, and then I compressed that tube with air. So it was squeezing in on the bladder and squishing it, and then that way it would work in any orientation. So if I picked my arm up, it would still work. It wouldn't the hose wouldn't flop out or something like that, or the fluid pulls away from where the fluid is going. No issues like that so you have to come up with a system that can work inverted or in any other orientation for that matter, especially on something like an Iron Man suit, which your arms can be up and around and all that stuff. So I may have a couple of smaller ones like that on the suit. Those might not be individually placed. What'll probably likely happen with the reservoirs is there'll be a couple of small ones per muscle. And then maybe like one bigger one on the back or somewhere else like that. And then that's how I'm going to store the fluid like that. We haven't even got to control mechanisms for the suit, but I'll wait till someone asks an enlightened question in that regard, and then I'll talk about that. And I think this was a pretty good question and answer. I feel like some things that maybe I just assumed people knew. Maybe you didn't. Or you're new to the channel and you haven't heard some of the older stuff. So I hope that fills in a little bit of information for you guys. Thank you for watching to the end. If you have any questions, leave them on this video, leave them on other videos. I'll watch them, take them, and then if I like them, I'll answer them. Yeah. Bye, guys. Kind of